morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus this morning is on gun violence. Every day, 100 Americans are killed with guns and hundreds more are shot and injured. According to Everytown research, the effects of gun violence extend far beyond these casualties. Gun violence shapes the lives of millions of Americans who witness it, know someone who was shot, or live in fear of the next shooting. Firearms are the second leading cause of death for American children and teens, and the first leading cause of death for Black children and teens. My first guest is a member of the Milwaukee Common Council, 2nd District Alderman Cavalier Johnson. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here and getting right into things. A couple of weeks ago, you shared with the public a very scary situation that happened right in front of your home that involved you and your family. Appreciate you being here to talk about this. Take us back to that day.
Certainly. So I was at home on the August recess, and my son, who's 9 years old, just turned 9 years old last month, was on his summer break, obviously, and I have twin daughters who are 1.5 years old. So I was home with my 3 children, and I heard gunshots that were just uncomfortably close. And so my son came out of his bedroom. He was playing with his new tablet that he had gotten for his birthday earlier in the month. And he was really, really concerned, and he came to me because he heard these gunshots, and he hit the floor. And he was crying, and he was afraid. And after I got him situated and made sure that my daughters were fine, I then went out to investigate. I'm a dad, I'm a father, and so I got into protective mode for my kids. And I saw a person fleeing from the general vicinity around my house where I thought the gunshots were coming from. No more than 2 minutes after the incident and securing my kids, I called 911 because, again, those shots were uncomfortably close to my neighborhood. The police came out and they confirmed that the shots were close and closer than I thought. They were actually about 5 steps out of my front door, so someone had pulled a trigger on my property, and they evidently were shooting at someone or something in the rear of my house or across the alley from my house. My car just happened to be in the line of fire, and so when those shots were fired, my car ended up getting a bullet hole in it.
Wow. And then you had 2 casings found right outside your home.
Exactly, and that's what the police told me, is that they were so close because the casings were found right outside of my front door.
That is some scary stuff. And needless to say, I'm glad you and your family are okay. But this happened at like 5 in the evening. And the sad reality is that people experience this thing every single day. They hear gunshots fired. And the thing is, your son hit the floor. A lot of people are so used to it. They don't even pay attention to it anymore. So, I mean, talk about the fact that your son, and I'm sure you as well, have experienced trauma behind this, because you never know when it can happen again.
Yeah, my son, who, again, just turned 9 years old, and in addition to getting a tablet for his birthday, he also got a brand new bike. And he was afraid to go outside and ride his bike. Because somebody decided to be reckless with a gun and shattered his thought that being home and being in his neighborhood was safe. That's on top of having to go back to school now, and even when he was in school previously, and having to participate in code red drills. And the thing that really upset me about all this is that people in Wisconsin, people in this city, people in this state want for our leaders in Madison to take proper action on guns. They refuse to do it, right? There was a poll that was done that showed that the vast majority of people in Wisconsin would like to see common sense reforms happen around guns. If somebody is a danger to themselves or to others, they should not be allowed to get a gun, right? If somebody is a career criminal and has a series of misdemeanors, they should not have access to a gun. If somebody cannot pass a background check, they should not have access to a gun. If somebody is having a gun purchased for them in a straw buy, they obviously should not have access to a gun. But every single time we come up with initiatives in order to stem the tide of guns flowing on our streets that are used in things like this, or used in the murder of the young lady that happened on 51st and Capitol, not terribly far away from where we're talking about now, the state legislature refuses to act. Instead, they would rather spend $100 million hardening schools as targets instead of making sure that people who should not have guns in the first place don't have the access to them.
Yeah, and it all seems so common sense, but sadly, politics gets in the way of people being able to come up with legislation that really is meant to protect everyday people like you and families across our country. So you mentioned the lady that was killed on 51st and Capitol, 46-year-old mother who was teaching her son how to drive. They had a minor traffic incident, and that turned into her being killed in front of her teenage son. That's one of the headlines that's so hard to digest. Then, of course, there is the countless number of bullets that have gone through homes and injured or claimed alive of someone innocent. Also, you have a child that was on a playground, killed. We had the situation where the community activists across the street from a park who worked hard to stop the violence ended up being caught in the crossfire. Then it's sad that I'm able to go on and on.
It is.
But there's also the other road rage incidents that claimed the life of a 3-year-old child, and then I believe it was a 5-year-old that was injured from someone in a road rage incident. Where do we go from here? Have you been contacted after going through your experience? Because I think that being able to talk about it and actually experiencing it for yourself has to be completely different. You can have the same passion, but to experience it and be able to talk to people about that. Have other lawmakers contacted you to discuss your thoughts on everything?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. And I sincerely wish that it was. I wish that the people that control the legislature, the Assembly and the Senate, Speaker Voss, Leader Fitzgerald, I wish that they would reach out to me, and I wish that they would reach out to other advocates against gun violence to have this conversation around guns, but they just haven't. You know, I think, and I said this in my statement, that I think that you can protect someone's Second Amendment rights, but you can also protect someone else's life and liberty.
Yeah.
Those things are not mutually exclusive. But instead, it seems like the leadership in Madison is more focused on making sure that people just have access to guns. And to me, the thing is this, right? If you want to provide an opportunity for somebody to protect themselves, to protect their family, and protect their property, that's great. But what you should also do at the same time is work to make sure that those folks never have to pull that trigger in the first place. And that, I think, is what's missing in our leadership in Madison.
Yeah,
and I think that's why they're silent.
That people who shouldn't have access to guns can easily get one based off of something that can be prevented. Like creating those red tape scenarios where someone has to wait and get a background check. But there are people, and I watch, you know, national news all the time, where I hear people saying, you know what, it doesn't make any difference if you create background checks and things of this nature. People who aren't supposed to have guns are still able to get them off the streets. What do you say to that?
Well, I think that that's a straw argument. I think that any time you have people that want to commit crimes, they're going to work to try to find a way to do it. That's a given, right?
Yeah.
The nature of criminals is that they don't obey laws. But if there's an opportunity for you to put measures in place that reduces our body count, then you should take it. Then you should take it. I mean, all of us as parents, we try our best to make sure that we raise responsible young people who are going to be able to contribute to society. And sometimes, even though parents put their best foot forward, kids sometimes go astray. That doesn't mean that you give up on raising your kids the right way just because they might go astray. Yeah,
and the sad part is we continue to have these mass shootings. The last shooting to date in Odessa, Texas, was the 25th mass shooting this year in America. And I'm starting to believe that we as Americans, we stop and pause and we look at the horror that comes from gun violence in these situations, but then it seems like it's back to business. Like there's almost a scenario of people being desensitized to what we constantly hear and absorb on a daily basis.
I think you're absolutely right. But the thing is this, there was a member of the House of Representatives, I believe from Texas, and after these incidents happened in Texas, he mentioned everybody ought to have guns and we should just battle this by prayer. And my response was that Americans prayed after Parkland, right? They prayed after Sandy Hook, they prayed after Pulse, they prayed after San Bernardino. I mean, the list goes on and
Dayton,
on.
Ohio, El Paso,
exactly.
Texas, yeah.
On and on and on. I mean, I'm a believer, but I also believe that in the Bible verse that faith without works is dead. And I don't think that you can just rest on prayers alone. Those leaders have to take some action in order to protect their constituents, not just here, but across the country.
Yeah, and you pointed out early in the conversation a poll, that's a Marquette University Law School poll that was conducted last year. 80% of Wisconsin residents favored extending background checks to private gun sales, and 56% of those polled favored banning assault-style weapons. Now, personally, I feel like assault-style weapons should not be available to anyone outside of the military and maybe the police department, but other than that, I don't see why everyday Americans need assault-style weapons. You don't need them to hunt.
No.
You certainly don't need a large number of bullets coming out at within seconds to protect your family. So this is the stuff that even I struggle through trying to understand, and I think that Americans every single day look at this, and I think that this upcoming election in 2020 is going to be huge based off of everything that's going on as we speak.
I totally agree. Those weapons that you just mentioned, those are weapons of war. They belong on a battlefield. They don't belong at a bake sale. Right? Nobody should be able to access a gun like that and walk down the street and use them. Those guns are made specifically to kill as many people as possible on a field of battle.
Yeah.
They don't belong on this city streets or any city street across the country.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But before we run out of time, I wanted to bring up reckless driving because that's another major concern, specifically in our community where you had an officer a Milwaukee police officer that was killed by someone who ran a red light right at 60th and Capitol. And so that intersection, along with 3 others across the city, 27th and Center and Fond du Lac, Cesar Chavez Drive and Greenfield Avenue, along with Muskego Avenue, and 35th and National are all a part of an anti-reckless pilot program called Take It Easy Milwaukee. It's targeted these 4 dangerous intersections. Tell us what this campaign is meant to accomplish.
Sure. So as you mentioned, those 4 intersections are some of the most notorious intersections in the city of Milwaukee as it relates to traffic accidents. And I know firsthand at the 60th and Capitol location because I live not terribly far away from there, and that's in my aldermanic district as well. And so Alderman Donovan, to his credit, worked really, really hard to amass a group of supporters to take on this very issue. So we got the private sector to come on board. A number of alders have come on board in support of it as well. The goal here is to highlight these intersections, make sure that folks know that you're entering a take it easy designated zone, that the intersection that you're approaching is a hazardous intersection due to the reckless nature of some drivers, and pair that with some police presence, some additional police presence in the area so that we can try to crack down on people who are driving recklessly in these neighborhoods all across our city.
I just don't understand what can be done as far as from lawmakers like yourself to really get it through the heads of individuals to change the mentality of people who run stop signs, run red lights, or just speed down these streets. What do you do?
Well, one of the things that the Common Council has done, one of the things that I've supported as a council member is try to work with the school system to invest in universal driver education. Now that doesn't stop the issues of reckless driving on the streets today, but it gives future generations of drivers some fundamentals behind the wheel, so that when they get of age and they start driving, hopefully they behave better than what's out there currently. So there's that. The policing enforcement issue is another thing, and I know that Chief Morales is keen on focusing on this issue and making sure that the police department tamps down on this as well. And the other thing that I try to implore people to do is to think about how your actions would affect somebody else. Think about how your actions would affect somebody else if the shoes were on the other foot. If somebody was speeding through a stop sign or a red light and they were to hit your mother or your father or your grandfather, think about it in terms of how you would feel if this happened to somebody that you care about, and go to a human level and try to get to them that way.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming by, sharing your thoughts, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. Alderman Cavalier Johnson represents Milwaukee's 2nd District, and you can keep up with the issues by visiting his webpage at city.milwaukee.gov. When we return to Our Issues Milwaukee, we'll find out more about a statewide grassroots organization that's dedicated to preventing gun violence, injuries, and deaths through education and advocacy. We'll meet a representative from the Wisconsin Anti-Violence Effort Educational Fund right after this.